The spotlight hit Catherine like she was born for it, which maybe she was. From table 9 in the back corner of the Riverside Resort's main ballroom, I watched my wife of 8 years grab Darren Holt by his perfectly pressed collar and plant a kiss on him that belonged in a different kind of movie altogether. The crowd went absolutely wild. I'm Eric Landon, and I fix things for a living. Broken faucets, squeaky hinges, cracked foundations. The irony wasn't lost on me that I couldn't fix my own marriage, though I didn't know how broken it really was until that moment under the reunion spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen," the DJ announced over the cheering, "looks like we have a winner for our most romantic reunion moment contest." Catherine pulled back from Darren, laughing that musical laugh I used to love, and wiped her lipstick from his mouth with her thumb. The gesture was intimate, practiced, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. The crowd ate it up. Camera phones flashed from every direction. I sat perfectly still, nursing my third beer and watching my wife perform for an audience that included half the people we'd grown up with in this college town, the same people who'd see me at the hardware store on Monday morning, who'd remember this moment every time they looked at me. Darren Holt, golden boy quarterback turned moderately successful tech entrepreneur, still had the same cocky grin he'd worn in high school when he dated Catherine before she settled for the handyman who dropped out of college to take care of his sick mother. Catherine bounced back to our table, cheeks flushed with excitement and attention. "Wasn't that hilarious?" she asked, sliding into her chair like nothing had happened. "Just for fun, you know? Everyone loved it." "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice level. "Hilarious." She didn't even look at me when she said it. Her eyes were already scanning the room, probably looking for more opportunities to be the center of attention. That's what Catherine lived for. The spotlight, the applause, the validation that she was still the prettiest girl in the room. I glanced across the ballroom and caught sight of Simone Holt sitting at table 3, Darren's wife of 10 years, a quiet brunette who taught piano lessons and kept to herself. She was staring at her husband with an expression I recognized because I was probably wearing the same one. The look of someone who just had their world tilted sideways. Our eyes met for exactly 3 seconds. In that brief moment, I saw something I didn't expect. Not just hurt, but calculation. Simone Holt was thinking, and that made her dangerous. The DJ cranked up some song from 2005, and Catherine immediately grabbed Becca Morrison, her best friend since college, to hit the dance floor. Becca had been filming the whole kiss on her phone, probably already uploading it to the reunion group chat that had been buzzing nonstop for weeks. I finished my beer and watched Catherine dance. She moved like she was still 22, still the college lecturer who commanded attention in every room she entered. At 36, she could still turn heads, and she knew it. The problem was, she needed those heads to turn, craved it like oxygen. "That was quite a show," said a voice behind me. I turned to find Coach Murphy, my gym buddy, and the only person at this reunion I actually wanted to talk to. He'd been the assistant football coach back when Darren was throwing touchdowns and Catherine was head cheerleader. Now he ran a small construction company and spotted me on bench press twice a week. "Catherine always did love an audience," I said. Murphy sat down in Catherine's empty chair and signaled the bartender for 2 more beers. "You know, I remember those 2 back in college. They were pretty hot and heavy before she started dating you." "Ancient history," I said, though something cold was settling in my stomach. "Maybe, but the way they looked at each other up there, that didn't look ancient to me." The beers arrived, and Murphy slid one across the table. "I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but as your friend, I gotta ask, you 2 doing okay?" I took a long pull from the bottle and watched Catherine laugh at something Darren was whispering in her ear as they danced. "We're fine," I lied. "If you say so, but Eric, that kiss wasn't just for fun. Trust me on that." Murphy had been married for 25 years to the same woman. He'd seen enough relationships come and go to know the difference between harmless flirtation and something more dangerous. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe you should pay attention to what's been going on while you've been working 60-hour weeks fixing everyone else's problems." The song ended, and Catherine made her way back to our table, slightly out of breath and glowing with excitement. Darren followed a few steps behind, that same arrogant smile plastered across his face. "Eric," Darren said, extending his hand like we were old friends. "Great to see you, man. Thanks for sharing your wife for that little performance." I shook his hand and squeezed just hard enough to let him know I wasn't impressed. "No problem. Catherine loves to perform." Catherine shot me a warning look, but Darren just laughed. "She always was the star of the show. Some things never change, right?" "Some things," I agreed. "Others do." The conversation continued for another few minutes, full of fake pleasantries and veiled references to the good old days. Darren mentioned his tech company, his house in the hills, his boat on the lake. Catherine hung on every word like he was revealing the secrets of the universe. I excused myself to use the restroom, but really I needed air. The ballroom felt suffocating, full of people reliving their glory days and pretending their current lives measured up to their college dreams. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the reunion group chat. Becca had already posted the video of the kiss, and the comments were pouring in. OMG, Catherine and Darren, still got it. Some things never change. Remember when they were king and queen? Poor Eric lol. That last comment hit like a punch to the gut. Poor Eric. The husband who worked with his hands while his wife worked with her mind. The guy who'd never quite fit in with Catherine's college crowd, who'd always been tolerated rather than accepted. I was about to put my phone away when a new message popped up in my direct messages. From Simone Holt. We should talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, when? Her response came immediately. Tomorrow. Coffee, Main Street Cafe. 10 a.m. I deleted the conversation and went back to the ballroom. Catherine was holding court at our table now, telling some story that had everyone laughing. Darren sat beside her, closer than necessary, his hand resting on the back of her chair. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and forced smiles. I played the part of the supportive husband, laughing at the right moments and nodding along with conversations about people I barely remembered from high school. But inside, something had shifted. The kiss had been a performance, sure, but performances reveal truth as much as they hide it. And the truth was that my wife had just humiliated me in front of half our hometown, and she didn't even care. At midnight, we finally left the reunion. Catherine chattered excitedly during the drive home about who looked good, who looked terrible, and how much fun she'd had. She didn't mention the kiss or Darren, or the way she'd ignored me for most of the evening. That was amazing, she said as we pulled into our driveway. I forgot how good it feels to be around people who actually appreciate me. The dig was subtle but clear, unlike her boring husband who took her for granted. Yeah, I said, turning off the engine. It looked like you were having fun. She finally looked at me then, her eyes bright with alcohol and adrenaline. Don't be such a wet blanket, Eric. It was just harmless fun. Everyone knew that. Harmless fun. The phrase would echo in my head for the rest of the night as I lay awake beside my sleeping wife, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Simone Holt's message. We should talk. Yes, we definitely should. I woke up at 6 a.m. with Catherine's words still ringing in my ears. Just harmless fun? The same phrase she'd used 3 months ago when I'd found flirty text messages on her phone. The same excuse she'd given when I'd caught her having lunch with her ex-boyfriend from graduate school. Catherine was still asleep, sprawled across 3/4 of our king-size bed like she owned it, which, according to the mortgage papers, she did. The house had been a wedding gift from her parents, successful real estate developers who'd never quite approved of their daughter marrying a tradesman. I made coffee in the kitchen and sat at the table, scrolling through my phone. The reunion group chat had exploded overnight with photos and videos from the party. Catherine and Darren's kiss was featured prominently in at least a dozen posts, with comments ranging from nostalgic to crude. But it was the older photos that caught my attention. Someone had shared a throwback album from the 5-year reunion, and there they were. Catherine and Darren standing close together in several shots, her hand on his arm around her waist. Both of them wearing wedding rings, both of them married to other people. I zoomed in on one particular photo. Catherine was laughing at something Darren was saying, her head tilted back, completely focused on him. I remembered that night. I'd been sick with food poisoning and had stayed home while Catherine went to the reunion alone. Just catching up with old friends, she'd said when she got home at 2 a.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Murphy. You see the group chat? That video's going viral in our little town. I typed back, yeah, I saw. You okay, man? I stared at the question for a long moment, then deleted my response and put the phone away. I wasn't okay, but I wasn't ready to admit that to anyone yet. Catherine wandered into the kitchen around 9, wearing one of my old t-shirts and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. God, my head, she groaned, pouring herself coffee. I think I overdid it last night. You seem to be having a good time. She shot me a look over her coffee mug. Are we going to do this? Really? It was one kiss, Eric, for a stupid contest. Everyone was laughing and having fun except you. I'm not upset about the kiss, I said, which was partially true. The kiss was just the symptom. I'm upset that you didn't even think about how it might make me feel. Oh, please. Catherine rolled her eyes. You're being ridiculous. It meant nothing. Did it mean nothing 5 years ago, too? The question hung in the air between us. Catherine's face went very still, and for a moment I saw something flicker in her eyes, Guilt, maybe, or fear. What's that supposed to mean? I saw the photos from the last reunion. You two looked pretty cozy then, too. Catherine set down her coffee mug with more force than necessary. You're being paranoid. Darren and I are friends. We have history. That doesn't mean anything inappropriate is happening. Friends don't usually kiss like that. It was for the contest. The contest was for most romantic reunion moment. Think about that for a second. Catherine stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head. I can't deal with your insecurity right now. I'm going to shower. She left the kitchen, and I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of the bathroom door slamming. A minute later, the shower started running. I had 2 hours before my meeting with Simone, time enough to do what I should have done months ago. Actually look for evidence instead of accepting Catherine's explanations. I went down to my basement workshop, where I kept an old laptop that Catherine thought I'd thrown away. It was slow and outdated, but it still worked, and more importantly, it was still connected to our shared cloud storage account. Catherine was terrible with technology. She never deleted anything, never cleared her browser history, never thought about digital footprints. For someone so careful about her public image, she was remarkably careless about covering her tracks online. I started with her photos, going back 6 months. Most of it was exactly what I'd expect. Selfies, pictures of food, screenshots of funny memes. But then I found a folder labeled Work Events that contained photos I'd never seen before. Darren appeared in a dozen of them. Coffee dates, lunch meetings, what looked like a weekend conference at a lake resort. In every photo, they were sitting close together, touching casually, looking comfortable in a way that spoke of intimacy. The timestamps told the story. The photos went back 8 months, starting right around the time Catherine had begun working late more often, right around the time she'd started going to professional development weekends that I was never invited to. I moved on to her browser history. Catherine used Chrome and never browsed in private mode, which meant every website she'd visited was logged and synced to the cloud. Most of it was boring: news sites, social media, online shopping. But there were searches that made my stomach clench. How to know if marriage is over? Signs you've outgrown your spouse, divorce lawyers near me, and then, more recently, Lake Tahoe romantic getaways, and best weekend trips for couples. I screenshot everything, saving the images to a folder on the old laptop. Then I dug deeper, looking for anything else that might be relevant. In her email, I found confirmation numbers for hotel reservations, not for conferences or work events, but for romantic weekend getaways at places I'd never been. The reservations were always for 2 people, always on weekends when Catherine had told me she was working or visiting her sister. My phone alarm went off. Time to meet Simone. I closed the laptop and headed upstairs. Catherine was still in the shower, probably using up all the hot water like she always did. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to hardware store, back this afternoon. Main Street Cafe was busy for a Saturday morning, full of families having breakfast and college students nursing hangovers with coffee and pancakes. I spotted Simone immediately. She was sitting in a corner booth, wearing sunglasses indoors and looking like she hadn't slept much. I slid into the seat across from her. Thanks for meeting me. She pulled off the sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes and the kind of exhaustion that comes from crying all night. I wasn't sure you'd come. Why wouldn't I? Because this is crazy. Meeting like this, talking about our spouses behind their backs. It feels like something out of a bad movie. The waitress came over, and we both ordered coffee. Neither of us was interested in food. How long have you suspected? Simone asked once we were alone again. Honestly, about 3 months, but looking back, probably longer. What about you? 6 months, maybe more. Darren started working late, traveling more for business, new clothes, new cologne, paying more attention to his appearance. She laughed bitterly. All the classic signs, right? Catherine's been doing the same thing. Professional development conferences, work dinners, girls' weekends that don't include any of her actual friends. Simone reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. I brought copies of everything I've found. Hotel receipts, credit card statements, text messages I recovered from his old phone. I stared at the folder. You've been investigating. For 2 months. Ever since I found a receipt for dinner at Romano's, a place we've never been together, on a night he said he was working late. She opened the folder and spread out several documents. Look at this. The evidence was damning. Hotel receipts for romantic getaways, restaurant bills for expensive dinners, even receipts for jewelry I was certain Darren hadn't given to his wife. The dates corresponded perfectly with Catherine's mysterious absences. I have more, I said, pulling out my phone to show her the screenshots from Catherine's cloud storage. Photos, browser history, email confirmations. We spent the next hour comparing notes, matching dates and times, building a timeline of deception that went back almost a year. The affair wasn't just physical, it was emotional, financial, and elaborate. They'd been planning getaways, sharing intimate moments, building a relationship that existed parallel to their marriages. They're not just having an affair, Simone said finally. They're living a whole separate life together. What do we do about it? Simone was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee and staring out the window at the busy street. When she looked back at me, her expression had hardened. We make them pay. I've been thinking about this for weeks, Simone continued, her voice steady and determined. Ever since I found the first hotel receipt, they think they're so clever, sneaking around, lying to our faces, but they've been sloppy, really sloppy. She pulled out another folder, this one thicker than the first. I hired a private investigator last month. Just to be sure, to get proof that would hold up in court. Court? Divorce court, where this is all heading, whether we want it to or not. Simone opened the second folder, revealing professional photographs of Catherine and Darren entering and leaving hotels, restaurants, even what looked like a cabin in the mountains. These were taken over the past 4 weeks. I studied the photos, feeling a strange mix of vindication and nausea. There was my wife, the woman I'd shared a bed with for 8 years, holding hands with another man, kissing him in parking lots, looking happier than I'd seen her in months. The cabin, I said, pointing to one of the photos. Where is that? Lake Tahoe. They've been renting it every other weekend for the past 3 months, splitting the cost down the middle, according to the bank records. Simone pulled out a rental agreement. Look at this. The lease was signed by both Catherine and Darren, listing them as domestic partners for the purposes of the rental. They'd used Darren's business address and Catherine's personal email. They'd even listed each other as emergency contacts. They're not just having an affair, I said, echoing Simone's earlier words. They're playing house. Exactly. And they're using marital assets to do it. The money Darren's spending on hotels and dinners, that's community property. Same with Catherine's share of the cabin rental. Simone had clearly done her homework. She'd documented everything, organized it chronologically, built a case that would devastate both cheaters in divorce proceedings. You're really good at this, I said. I'm a piano teacher, but I have a business degree. I know how to research, how to organize information, how to build a case. She smiled grimly. I also have a friend who's a divorce attorney, Alice Chen. She's been advising me on how to protect myself legally. What did she say? She said we have enough evidence to file for divorce on grounds of adultery in this state. That means we can potentially get more favorable settlements, especially if we can prove they use marital assets to fund their affair. I leaned back in the booth, processing everything. 3 hours ago, I'd been a suspicious husband with a few screenshots and a bad feeling. Now I was looking at a coordinated legal strategy that could destroy both cheaters financially and socially. There's something else, Simone said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Alice suggested we file on the same day, same time, if possible. Maximum impact, minimum chance for them to hide assets or coordinate their stories. You want to ambush them. I want to make sure they understand that actions have consequences. They've been treating us like fools for months, Eric. Lying to our faces, spending our money on their little love nest, planning their future together while we sit at home wondering what we did wrong. She was right, and we both knew it. Catherine and Darren had made a choice to betray their spouses, to live double lives, to risk everything for their selfish desires. They deserved whatever consequences came from that choice. When? I asked. Alice can have papers ready by Monday. We serve them simultaneously, Darren at his office, Catherine at the university, 9 a.m. sharp, when they're both in public places surrounded by colleagues. The plan was elegant in its simplicity and brutal in its execution. No private conversations, no chance to explain or make excuses. Just cold, legal reality delivered in the most humiliating way possible. What about after? They'll try to contact us, try to explain. Let them try. Alice is setting up a secure communication system. Everything goes through the lawyers. No direct contact unless it's about dividing assets or finalizing the divorce. I thought about Catherine's reaction when she realized I knew everything. The anger, the denial, the attempts to blame me for her choices. Then I thought about her kissing Darren on stage, wiping lipstick from his mouth like I didn't exist. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Simone smiled for the first time since I'd sat down. Good. There's one more thing, Alice suggested. We should document everything that happens between now and Monday. Every lie they tell, every excuse they make, every time they sneak off to be together. The more evidence we have of ongoing deception, the stronger our case becomes. We spent another hour planning our strategy. Simone would continue her surveillance, using the private investigator to document Darren's movements. I would play the unsuspecting husband, giving Catherine enough rope to hang herself with. "She'll probably try to see him this weekend," Simone said. "They've been meeting every Saturday afternoon at that coffee shop on University Avenue. Then they usually go to the cabin or a hotel." "How do you know all this?" "I've been following them. Not personally, I hired professionals. But I know their routine better than they do." She gathered up the folders and slid them back into her purse. "The question is, are you prepared to watch your wife lie to your face for the next 2 days?" I thought about it. Could I sit across the breakfast table from Catherine, listen to her make excuses for where she was going, pretend to believe her stories about work events and girls' nights? Could I kiss her goodbye, knowing she was going to spend the afternoon in bed with another man? "Yeah," I said. "I can do that." "It won't be easy. You'll want to confront her, to make her admit what she's doing. But if you tip our hand now, they might get suspicious. They could start hiding assets, coordinating their stories, making this whole process more difficult." "I understand." Simone stood up and put on her sunglasses. "Alice wants to meet with both of us tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock at her office. She'll walk us through the filing process, make sure we understand what we're getting into." "What are we getting into?" "War, Eric. Legal, financial, and social war. They started it when they decided to cheat. We're just going to finish it." After Simone left, I sat in the cafe for another 20 minutes, drinking cold coffee and thinking about what came next. In 48 hours, my marriage would be officially over. Catherine would know that I knew everything, that her secret life was exposed, that her comfortable existence was about to disappear. Part of me felt guilty about the deception, about planning behind her back the same way she'd been planning behind mine. But a larger part of me felt something I hadn't experienced in months: control. For the first time since I'd started suspecting the affair, I wasn't reacting to Catherine's lies. I was taking action. My phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Going shopping with Becca this afternoon. Might grab dinner too, don't wait up." I stared at the message, knowing it was almost certainly a lie. Catherine hated shopping with Becca, who was perpetually broke and always wanted to go to discount stores. And "don't wait up" was Catherine's code for, "I'll be out very late doing something I don't want to explain." I typed back, "Have fun. Love you." The lie came easily, which surprised me. But then again, I'd been living with a liar for months. Maybe some of her skills had rubbed off on me. I drove home and found Catherine in our bedroom, trying on different outfits and discarding them on the bed. She was putting way too much effort into her appearance for an afternoon of shopping with her perpetually casual best friend. "Find anything good?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Just trying to look decent. You know how Becca is. She always looks so put together." Catherine held up a dress that I'd never seen before, something expensive and flattering that definitely hadn't come from our joint checking account. "What do you think of this?" "It's nice. New?" "I got it last week. There was a sale at that boutique downtown." Another lie, delivered with the same casual confidence she'd been using for months. I watched her get ready, applying makeup with the kind of care she usually reserved for important work events, styling her hair in loose waves that took 40 minutes to perfect. She was beautiful, I had to admit. At 36, Catherine could still stop traffic, and she knew exactly how to use that power. "I might be late," she said, kissing my cheek as she headed for the door. "You know how Becca likes to talk." "No problem. I've got some projects to work on in the garage." She left in a cloud of expensive perfume, driving off in the SUV her parents had bought her for her last birthday. I watched from the window as she turned left at the end of our street, the opposite direction from Becca's apartment. I went down to my workshop and fired up the old laptop again. If Simone was right about their routine, Catherine would be meeting Darren at the coffee shop on University Avenue in about an hour. Then they'd head to their love nest for an afternoon of romance funded by their spouse's money. The thought should have made me angry, but instead I felt oddly calm. Let them have their afternoon. Let them think they were getting away with something. In 48 hours, their whole world would come crashing down, and I'd be there to watch it happen. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me want to work in the yard and drink coffee on the back deck. Instead, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table at 7 a.m., staring at Catherine's empty coffee mug and wondering what lies she'd tell me today. She'd come home at midnight, slipping into bed like she thought I was asleep. Her hair smelled like a different shampoo, and her skin carried traces of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. When I'd asked how her day with Becca went, she'd mumbled something about trying on clothes and gossiping about the reunion before rolling over and pretending to fall asleep. Now she was in the shower, getting ready for what she'd announced last night was a work brunch with some colleagues from the university. On a Sunday, at a restaurant 40 minutes away, with people she'd never mentioned before. My phone buzzed with a text from Simone. Meeting with Alice at 2 p.m. Her office is on Maple Street above the bookstore. Are you ready for this? I typed back, as ready as I'll ever be. Good. After tomorrow, there's no going back. Catherine came downstairs wearing a sundress and heels, looking like she was heading to a garden party instead of a work meeting. She poured coffee into a travel mug and grabbed her purse from the counter. I'll probably be gone most of the day, she said without looking at me. This brunch thing might turn into an all-day planning session for the new curriculum. On Sunday? You know how academics are. We work weird hours. She finally looked at me, her expression carefully neutral. What are your plans? Probably work on that cabinet project for the Hendersons. Maybe watch some football later. Sounds nice and relaxing. She kissed my forehead, a gesture that felt more like a dismissal than affection. I'll see you tonight. After she left, I did actually work on the Henderson cabinet project for a few hours. Keeping my hands busy helped quiet my mind, and the familiar rhythm of measuring, cutting, and sanding was almost meditative. But I kept checking my phone, wondering where Catherine really was and what she was really doing. At noon, I got a text from Murphy. You see the news about the reunion video? I hadn't been checking social media, but now I pulled up Facebook and searched for the reunion group. The video of Catherine and Darren's kiss had been shared dozens of times, spreading beyond our immediate social circle to include people we'd gone to high school with, college acquaintances, even some of Catherine's work colleagues. The comments ranged from supportive to snarky to downright cruel. Several people had tagged Catherine and Darren, asking if they were rekindling old flames. Others had made jokes about their spouses being good sports about the whole thing. But it was a comment from someone I didn't recognize that caught my attention. Saw these two at Romano's last weekend. Looked pretty cozy for just friends. Then another. My sister works at the Lakeside Resort. Says she's seen them there together multiple times over the summer. And another? Aren't they both married to other people? The reunion kiss wasn't being seen as harmless fun anymore. People were starting to connect dots, to remember other sightings, to ask uncomfortable questions. Catherine and Darren's secret was becoming not so secret, at least among our social circle. I screenshot the most damning comments and added them to my growing file of evidence. Tomorrow, Alice would have everything she needed to build a case that would leave no doubt about what had been happening. At 2 o'clock, I drove to Alice Chen's office, a small suite above the downtown bookstore. Simone was already there, sitting in the waiting room and looking nervous. Alice turned out to be a sharp-dressed woman in her early 40s with the kind of direct gaze that probably intimidated opposing counsel. She led us into her office, which was all dark wood and leather chairs, designed to convey competence and authority. I've reviewed all the evidence you've both provided, she said, settling behind her desk with 2 thick folders. I have to say, this is one of the most well-documented cases of adultery I've seen in 15 years of practice. Is that good or bad? I asked. For you? Very good. For them? Catastrophic. Alice opened the first folder. In this state, adultery is still grounds for divorce, and it can significantly impact property division and spousal support. The fact that they used marital assets to fund their affair makes it even worse for them. She walked us through the legal process, explaining how the papers would be served, what to expect in terms of their reactions, and how to handle any attempts at contact or reconciliation. They'll probably try to minimize what happened, Alice said. Call it a mistake, claim it meant nothing, promise it won't happen again. Don't believe any of it. People who plan elaborate affairs, rent cabins together, and lie to their spouses for months don't just make mistakes. They make choices. What about the social media stuff? Simone asked, showing Alice the Facebook comments on her phone. Perfect. Public humiliation often motivates people to settle quickly rather than drag things out in court. They'll want this to go away as fast as possible. Alice made a note in her file. I'll make sure to reference the social media attention in our initial filings. We spent another hour going over logistics. Alice would have process servers at both Darren's office and Catherine's classroom at exactly 9 a.m. The papers would be identical, divorce petitions citing adultery, with requests for favorable property division based on their misuse of marital assets. What happens after they're served? I asked. They'll probably call their own lawyers immediately. Then the lawyers will call me to try to work out a settlement. Most cases like this never make it to trial. The evidence is too damaging and the social cost is too high. How long does the whole process take? If they cooperate and don't try to hide assets, we could have everything finalized in 6 months. If they want to fight, it could take longer, but fighting will only make the evidence more public. Alice smiled grimly. Trust me, they won't want that. As we prepared to leave, Alice handed each of us a business card. After tomorrow, don't communicate directly with your spouses about anything related to the divorce. Everything goes through me. And don't let them guilt you or manipulate you into changing course. They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. Simone and I walked out together, both of us quiet and thoughtful. In less than 18 hours, we'd be divorced people, our marriages officially over, our lives permanently changed. Are you scared? Simone asked as we reached our cars. Terrified, I admitted, but also relieved. At least tomorrow I won't have to pretend anymore. Me too. I'm tired of being the only honest person in my marriage. I drove home to find Catherine's car in the driveway. She was in the living room, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine and her laptop, looking relaxed and content. How was your work brunch? I asked. Oh, boring academic stuff, but productive. She didn't look up from her screen. How was your day? Quiet. Got some work done on the cabinet. That's nice. We spent the evening in comfortable domestic silence, Catherine on her laptop, me watching a football game, both of us pretending our marriage wasn't about to explode. She made pasta for dinner, we talked about mundane things like grocery lists and home repairs, and she even laughed at a joke I made about the terrible play calling in the game. It felt almost normal, which made it even more surreal. In 12 hours, Catherine would discover that her secret life was no longer secret, that her comfortable existence was over, that the husband she'd been lying to had been planning his own deception. As we got ready for bed, I watched her go through her nightly routine, removing makeup, brushing her teeth, applying the expensive face cream her mother had given her for Christmas. She looked beautiful and peaceful, completely unaware that this was the last normal night she'd have for a very long time. Eric, she said as we settled into bed. Yeah? I love you. The words hit me like a physical blow. Did she mean them? Was she feeling guilty about her afternoon with Darren? Or was this just another manipulation, another way to keep me unsuspecting while she continued her affair? I love you too, I said, because what else could I say? Tomorrow would bring truth. Tonight, we could both pretend a little longer. Catherine fell asleep quickly, but I lay awake for hours, listening to her breathe and thinking about everything that was about to change. By this time tomorrow, she'd know that I knew everything. She'd know that her marriage was over, that her reputation was damaged, that her comfortable life was disappearing. Part of me felt guilty about the deception, about planning behind her back while she slept peacefully beside me. But a larger part of me felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Anticipation. Tomorrow, the lies would stop. Tomorrow, the truth would finally come out. Tomorrow, Catherine and Darren would learn that actions have consequences. Monday morning started like any other. Catherine's alarm went off at 6:30, she hit snooze twice, and then stumbled to the shower while I made coffee. She emerged 20 minutes later, looking polished and professional, ready for another day of teaching literature to bored college students. I've got back-to-back classes until 3, she said, pouring coffee into her travel mug. Then office hours until 5. I'll probably grab dinner with some colleagues afterward. Another lie, delivered with the same casual confidence she'd been using for months. But this would be the last one. Sounds good, I said. I've got jobs lined up all day, too. Catherine kissed my cheek and headed for the door. Have a good day, honey. You too? I watched her drive away, knowing that in 2 hours her world would collapse. Alice had confirmed via text that both process servers were in position, one at Darren's office building, one outside Catherine's classroom in the English department. At exactly 9 a.m., my phone rang. It's done, Alice said. Both targets have been served. Catherine was walking into her 9 o'clock lecture when the server approached her. Darren was getting coffee in his office lobby. How did they react? About what you'd expect. Shock, denial, anger. Catherine tried to argue with the process server, claiming there had been some mistake. Darren just stood there looking like he'd been hit by a truck. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction that the lies were finally over, sadness that it had come to this. What happens now? Now we wait. They'll call lawyers, probably try to reach out to you and Simone directly. Don't answer. Let them panic for a while. It'll make them more likely to settle quickly. Alice was right. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later, Catherine's number flashing on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then it rang again and again. The text messages started after the 4th missed call. Eric, call me right now. There's been a huge mistake. This is insane. We need to talk immediately. I can't believe you would do this without even discussing it with me. You're being manipulated by that woman. Can't you see that? I turned off my phone and went to work. I had 3 jobs scheduled. a kitchen faucet repair, a deck staining project, and installing new shelves in someone's home office. Keeping busy would help me avoid the temptation to answer Catherine's calls or second-guess what I'd done. But I couldn't stop thinking about her reaction to being served. The shock, the denial, the immediate assumption that she could talk her way out of it. Even now, faced with legal documents and evidence of her affair, she was trying to control the narrative. At lunch, I turned my phone back on to find 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Catherine had clearly moved through the stages of grief at record speed: denial, anger, bargaining, and back to anger again. The messages painted a clear picture of her mental state. 9:47 a.m. This is ridiculous. Call me. 10:15 a.m. I know you're getting these messages. We can work this out. 10:52 a.m. You're throwing away 8 years of marriage over nothing. 11:23 a.m. Fine. If you want to play games, I'll play too. My lawyer says you don't have a case. 11:45 a.m. Darren says his wife is crazy and you're just as bad. You're both being manipulated. 12:18 p.m. I'm coming home. We're going to settle this like adults. That last message had been sent 10 minutes ago. Catherine was on her way home, probably expecting to find me there so she could deploy her full arsenal of manipulation tactics. Too bad I'd be installing shelves in someone's home office until 5 o'clock. My phone rang. Simone's number this time. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Better than expected. Catherine's been blowing up my phone all morning, but I haven't answered. What about Darren?" "Same thing. Lots of calls, lots of texts, lots of denial and anger. He actually showed up at my house an hour ago, demanding to talk. I called the police." "Seriously?" Alice warned me they might try direct confrontation when they realized we weren't answering our phones. The officer who responded was very understanding. He suggested I get a restraining order if Darren keeps harassing me. The idea that Darren had tried to intimidate Simone in person made my anger flare. These people had been lying and cheating for months, and now they were acting like victims because they'd been caught. "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine. Actually, I feel better than I have in months. It's amazing what happens when you stop living in denial." Simone paused. "Alice wants to meet with us tomorrow morning. She says both of their lawyers have already called trying to negotiate." That was fast. Apparently adultery cases with this much evidence don't leave much room for maneuvering. They want to settle before this gets any more public than it already is. After we hung up, I finished my afternoon jobs and drove home, curious to see if Catherine had followed through on her threat to come home and settle this like adults. Her car was in the driveway, and I could hear music playing inside the house. I found her in the living room, dressed in the outfit she'd worn on our first date, with candles lit and a bottle of wine open on the coffee table. "Finally," she said, standing up with a smile that looked forced. "I was starting to think you were avoiding me." "I was working." "Of course you were, always working." She moved closer, and I could smell her perfume, the same scent she'd worn when we first met. "Eric, we need to talk about this morning, about this whole misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding, Catherine." "Of course it is. Someone has filled your head with lies, convinced you that I'm having an affair. It's ridiculous." She reached for my hands, but I stepped back. "Darren and I are friends. We have history, yes, but that doesn't mean anything inappropriate is happening. I've seen the evidence, the photos, the hotel receipts, the cabin rental agreement. I know about everything." For just a moment, Catherine's mask slipped, and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. But she recovered quickly, switching tactics. "Okay, fine. Maybe Darren and I have gotten a little too close lately. Maybe we've made some mistakes. But it's not what you think, Eric. It's not some grand affair. We're just confused, going through a rough patch in our marriages. A rough patch that involved renting a cabin together for 3 months. That was just a place to talk, to figure things out. Nothing happened there." The lie was so blatant, so insulting to my intelligence that I almost laughed. "Catherine, I have photos of you kissing him in the parking lot of that cabin. I have credit card records showing you bought lingerie for your talking sessions. Stop lying." Her expression hardened. "You had me followed? You hired a private investigator?" "I didn't have to. You were sloppy. You left digital footprints everywhere, used joint credit cards for your romantic getaways, stored photos in our shared cloud account. For someone so smart, you were remarkably stupid about covering your tracks." Catherine stared at me for a long moment, probably realizing that her usual tactics weren't going to work. The tears, the seduction, the gaslighting, none of it was effective against someone who had actual evidence. "Fine," she said finally. "Yes, I've been seeing Darren. Yes, we've been intimate. But it's not what you think, Eric. It's not about not loving you. It's about feeling alive again, feeling desired, feeling like someone actually sees me. So this is my fault. Not your fault. But you have to admit, we've grown apart. We want different things, have different interests. We're not the same people we were when we got married. So you decided to cheat instead of talking to me about it. I decided to explore my feelings for someone who understands me, who appreciates me, who makes me feel like the woman I used to be. Catherine's voice was getting stronger, more defiant. I'm sorry you found out this way, but I'm not sorry it happened. There it was, the truth, finally. No more lies, no more excuses, no more manipulation. Catherine had chosen Darren over our marriage, had chosen deception over honesty, had chosen her own desires over our shared commitment. Good, I said, because now you're free to explore those feelings without lying to me about it. Eric, please. We can work through this. Couples survive affairs all the time. We can go to counseling, rebuild trust, start over. With what? You've been living a double life for months, spending our money on your boyfriend, planning a future that didn't include me. What exactly would we be rebuilding? Catherine was crying now, but they weren't the manipulative tears she'd used in the past. These were tears of genuine desperation, the tears of someone who'd finally realized that actions have consequences. I made a mistake, she said. A terrible, stupid mistake. But it's over now. I'll end things with Darren. We'll move past this. We'll be stronger than before. It's too late for that. It's not too late. It's never too late if we both want to save our marriage. I looked at her, beautiful, desperate, finally honest, and felt nothing but sadness. Not anger, not betrayal, not even disappointment. Just sadness for what we'd lost, for what we'd never really had. The problem is, Catherine, I don't want to save our marriage. Not anymore. She stared at me in shock. What? I've spent months wondering what I did wrong, how I could fix us, how I could make you happy again. But you know what I realized? I can't make you happy. Nobody can. You'll always need more attention, more validation, more excitement than any one person can provide. That's not true. Isn't it? How long before you get bored with Darren too? How long before you need someone new to make you feel alive? Catherine didn't have an answer for that, which was answer enough. The divorce papers are filed, I continued. My lawyer has all the evidence of your affair. Your reputation at the university is probably shot. News travels fast in academic circles. Your parents are going to be mortified when they find out. And Darren? He's dealing with his own angry spouse and his own legal problems. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. For the first time in months, we're both being honest. I moved toward the door. I'm staying at Murphy's place tonight. I'll be back tomorrow to pack some things. After that, all communication goes through the lawyers. Eric, please don't do this. Please don't throw away everything we built together. I paused at the door and looked back at her one last time. You already threw it away, Catherine. I'm just cleaning up the mess. As I drove to Murphy's house, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The lies were over. The pretending was finished. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and negotiations and the messy business of dividing up a life, but tonight I could finally breathe. My phone buzzed with one last text from Catherine. I'm sorry. For everything. I believed her. But sorry wasn't enough to fix what she'd broken. Sorry wasn't enough to rebuild trust that had been shattered by months of deception. Sorry was just another word, and Catherine had used up all her words. The reckoning was complete. Now came the consequences.